Hey,
How's it going?
not too bad, not too bad. We set up a new mic, so is the volume good on your end, or is it
Yeah,
too?
it's
Okay.
perfect. It's amazing.
It's always the fear, right? Because I can't hear it on your end, and I don't want to be
Yeah,
like screaming at you.
no, it's crystal. It's crystal.
Perfect.
Thank you
So,
so much for having me.
well, thank you for being here. So, my name's Blake. I'm with Hidden Beats, as you know. You are Lex Leosis. Am I pronouncing that
That's
correctly?
correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So you had a huge album that dropped last year, Mythologies, and the new single is one second, Won't Wait. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, it's either Can't Wait or Won't Wait. So Won't
Yeah.
Wait.
One of the two.
Yeah, Won't Wait just dropped. I want to say was that back in March?
Yeah. April, end of April. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. It was Mythologies was like interesting because it dropped right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I had spent like a year and a half working on an album that dropped like the day of everything closing, quite literally. So that was like a little tough, and we had to cancel the tour. We had to cancel interviews and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't get to push it how I really wanted to. But in the same sense, I figured like everyone else, we're living through this, and I have to just make more music and more inspiration. And so this new project, Terracotta, with Won't Wait being the first single, is like my new stuff that I've been working on through the pandemic. I'm really excited.
No, it's awesome. It was such an interesting album. Like I love concept albums just like as a whole, like in general, but just the way that you broke it up into the three kind of, I don't want to say like genres, I guess, would be
Fates,
or
yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah.
Fates, yeah.
And like I'm a huge mythology buff. Like that's so even the fact that you like did it off like Greek mythology, I was just like, oh, this is
Yeah,
everything.
we're just gonna geek all day. We can talk about that all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Fates was like an interesting concept because I'm Greek myself, so I had been exploring kind of my history. I grew up on my mom's side, and my dad's family is Greek. So I was just as I was kind of reconnecting with old family members that I had never met and hearing stories just about Greece and the family in general. I was like, this would be a really cool concept to be able to merge the fates with different genres and kind of different levels of who I am and like my different personality sides as well, right? So that was really fun and complex. And I'm so glad you like concept albums because I feel like we don't really listen to albums anymore from front to back. And so I really appreciate people who like really like to take it in the whole project as a whole because we work really hard on making sure it all flows, right?
Oh, the flow is so key. Like, I mean, I listen to a lot of music, like
Of course.
but it's very rare that you get an album that A has solid flow through that isn't just like single ballad, single, the experimental track.
Yeah.
Like it's and yeah, to have like that solid flow through, it kind of reminded me of like the XX, their first album, how it was just like one kind of like
Uh,
dream sequence. So I like I was a huge fan, yeah.
Yeah,
But
oh, I'm so glad you loved it. Yeah, that was kind of the first project that I ever did that I wanted to make conceptual, and it was really important to me that the music production flowed as well as like the story and the lyrics, you know, because they're two different worlds, and sometimes artists have like two completely different people writing their stuff and producing their stuff, and then they're the one that makes it come together. But I was learning how to do both. So I'm really glad it all flowed and it came to light, and it was a really deep vision of mine for a long time. So
no, the hard work definitely shows. And especially because you're younger, aren't you? You're like mid-20s?
yeah, I'm 28.
28. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I released Mythologies, yeah, when I was 20, yeah, 7, and I had probably written it through like 25, 26. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
there's always you gotta go like the 1 year back.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it takes a long time to make it come to light.
And did you do all like the writing and producing in Toronto? Because you're based out of Toronto, correct?
Yeah, based out
Yeah.
of Toronto, born and raised here. I did all the writing in Toronto. The production was kind of all over the place. I actually did a lot of the recording in LA. I used to live there, and the producer Andre Paxson, he did had like half the album. He mixed a lot of it as well. We did a lot of that while I was visiting in LA, just in one stint. I had kind of the deeper, more flowy tracks on there that are supposed to be representations of the fate are the stuff that I did with him because I brought this concept to him and he really clicked with it. So we just sat in the studio while I was visiting over a week and we just played with instruments and sounds and weird experimental vocals, just making sounds and pitching them up and down until it was like this vibe.
No, I love that. I love that. Like I work with a lot of like country musicians doing this. So it's always like Nashville, Nashville, Nashville. So it's so nice to hear that someone had like a good experience in LA.
None of us. Yeah, I have like a love-hate relationship with LA. Like I really do love parts of it, but I do see the parts that are like very celebrity and like power and social media driven. That's not my vibe either. So Toronto's good for that for me.
Awesome. So you mentioned that like you kind of grew up more with your mom in the GTA. And what like where was it, like Toronto proper, or is it like Mississauga?
Toronto proper. I'm
Oh
trying to fast so I
no.
can say that. Toronto proper. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up Jane and Dundas area in the like
Oh sweet, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I grew up here. My dad lived just outside of Hamilton, and yeah, I went to school in the same area, high school as well. And then I went to college in Quebec, which was like a different experience, but I always come home. I did a little like stint in Texas and a little LA, a little the Bay area, but always come home.
So interestingly enough, I'm originally from Montreal and now I live in Ottawa. And that was a huge culture shock going from French, Montreal big town to like at the time, Ottawa was like not even 1 million people yet.
Right.
And I was just
Ottawa is like a really, we play a lot of shows in Ottawa and I love it there. I think like the culture, the hip hop scene in Ottawa, like there are a few key players that are really making it a really great community based place. And it's growing every year, which is cool. Every time I go back, there's just more and more people in the venue and more people who are down for that scene. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I know like Babylon and the 27 Club here, they usually have like a really strong like community there. So
yeah. Played both. Yeah.
No way.
I was in a group called the Sorority and we played Ottawa every tour we did.
Yeah, because it was you and 3 other girls, right?
Yeah, Habaya Mighty and Keisha Fresh.
Yeah,
so it was like that was touring Canada was such an experience, and Ottawa was definitely one of our favorite places to be because you guys go hard out there. The fans go like, it's like not like Toronto where like people are mobbed up against the wall and all like stank face. They're like in it right at the stage cheering you on all the time, so we love it there.
Yeah, like I go to Toronto a fair amount because I have friends who play like, you know, like the Painted Lady, the Cherry Cola Room, like places like that.
Right.
They're like these tiny little venues. I love it. Like that's my jam. But whenever it's so true because you go to Toronto and everyone, I think it's because you can go out every night of the week in Toronto. So it's like people are like, oh, whatever, it's not that big a deal. Then you go out in Ottawa, it's like you've got Friday night, you've got Saturday night, you've got maybe Thursday.
Yeah, maybe if there's an event. Yeah. But yeah, Toronto definitely always has something to do. And I feel like the scene is also so big and so like diverse here. So there's always like a different kind of thing you can do or a different style of music or genre that you can show up for. So I've been like, now that the pandemic's almost done, I'm going to be at every music show. I'm so hyped to be back hopefully soon, probably next year. But
oh yeah, like the first, we're still trying to figure out like what concerts and festivals and all that are going to look because like the States are all starting back up again. Like there's shows all over, especially in like August, September kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like that first first concert is going to be rough. People are going to lose their minds.
Lose it. I'm ready. I'm going to be one of the people losing my minds for sure. I'm so excited to be back on stage. I haven't played like I haven't done too many virtual shows either. I've just been like really working on this new project that's coming out. So I'm just excited to like that exchange of energy again and being in front of people and just like, yeah, you just meet so many cool people through shows that have like similar shared experiences and are completely different as well. So it's always a vibe.
Because I was gonna ask, yeah, about with sorority, because you traveled with them for what, 2 years?
Yeah, we were a group for 4, but yeah, for the first year we were building, second year we played shows, and then like for 2 years we were touring like heavily, like every week kind of deal.
So it must have been difficult to kind of decide to do a little bit of a solo project, leaving such a close fam like that.
Yeah, we came to the agreement together, which was really beautiful because I don't think any one of us could have like made that decision. And we were solo artists before. We were kind of a forced group because we got together through the Cypher and like the Cypher blew up and people wanted us to be a group. So we literally just became a group. We didn't know each other the day of the cypher. So we literally like, oh, people want this and we're all doing our own solo thing, but this seems like a great vibe. And then we made an album and it really hit. And so we started touring lots together, but we were already all solo artists beforehand. And then we all just got this like next level with the group. And the plan though was to always go back to being solo. And I think like after Phoenix left the group, we were touring for another year, and then we just decided like this just seems like a natural point to like put things on pause. And Havaya is like with her album 13th Floor like did so incredible. Keisha Fresh, like I'm sure you've been seeing her commercial. She's like on TSN, and just like everyone's just doing their thing so well, and I'm so proud of them. And we all support each other, and we're in the group chat still. So it was like a really beautiful way to end things, and we wanted it to be that way instead of it being like this stressful thing where we have to pick like I have a solo show or the group show and we're letting people down. Like, you know, it would have been a mess.
It's good that it was like a very organic, like everything kind of wrote out its time and in due place. And
yeah, and we still like work together on stuff and talk stuff, and like who knows what the future holds. Like we kept it kind of open-ended because we don't know, but for the most part right now, like we all knew we had to get back to our solo journey and just like build and expand. And with the pandemic, it seemed like the right thing to do because we weren't able to see each other or do anything anyways, you know.
yeah, well, I kind of want to touch on, because you have a pretty heavy like TikTok following, and your Insta is pretty decent as well. Like you mentioned that you weren't really doing live shows. Was that, or sorry, like online shows? Was that like a conscious decision, or is it just something you just, weren't vibing with?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, like everyone, when there was like that virtual show rush at the beginning, like this is how we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna transition. I definitely did stuff to push mythologies. I did like a few Instagram live, like little shows. My roommate plays the acoustic guitar, so like it was a vibe. We did a couple of those, but after a while, it was just something that didn't feel like I would have just been playing mythologies over and over again. And I was working really hard on making this new music, which is very different from mythologies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard. So it's like the production is different, the vibe is different, and I like really make a conscious effort to like grow as a human being in between projects. And I think that's really important, is that like I have to live my life to have stuff to talk about. So I just doing a live show and being in the public was like not the vibe that I was in when making the album. I was like rediscovering myself basically, you know. We were all stuck at home like dealing with like self-love and self-care and like survival in most cases for a lot of artists. So it was just like this very like solo experience. So the virtual shows felt like this very like public thing that I didn't want to do during that time. But TikTok was a fun way to like give people what they wanted in that regard, to like still see me perform, but also it just to be like short and curated, and like these are just the parts that you get to see. Whereas I wanted to kind of go underground, which is usually my process for each album, and like rebuild myself and figure out what I want to say next, and then present an album the way that I want to present it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially with like mythologies being such, I'm gonna say it was like such a heavy album, but it was such like a deep and like introspective album that you didn't want to just, hey, let's just constantly be in this like same emotionally like draining place every Friday. Like
my manager was so happy when he heard the new stuff, because he's like, wow, like it's actually happy and like, you know, like, it's fun. It's like, yeah, the last album was like very like deep and dark. Like I had just come out to like my whole family. I was dealing with like major depression and a major switch in my life, and like relationship changes, and like it felt heavy and dark. And then moving out of that, like I felt like light and happy and like rediscovering parts of myself. So this new album is like, it still touches on things that are like heavier, but like the sound is happy because I feel happy, you know?
yeah, it's that one, it's like the different wavelengths of the brain, right? Like now you're up on the upswing, so the music is going to have that more like upbeat attitude towards it.
Right. And inevitably, like you lose like fans and people who listen to your music in that process, because it's not what it sounded like before, and it's different. And with every album, like I think the biggest thing that my team has always struggled with working with me is that like sometimes my new shit is completely different than my old shit, and they're like, well, now you're a whole different artist that we have to promote in a whole different way. But I'm just like, that's the challenge that everybody set out for, because like I don't want to be the same person from album to album. Like I don't want to make sad girl raps or like hot girl summer raps, like if I don't feel like that, you know?
No, you got to be true to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that authenticity has always been something that's important for me, like especially as a white person in hip hop, like taking up space and like being aware of that. Like if I'm not bringing authenticity to the table, then like why am I even here, you know?
Yeah, very, very true. Because I was gonna say, yeah, it's not exactly. You kind of might stick out a little bit at the
A
shows.
lot. I'm also 6'2", so I'm like very tall, and like I stick out a lot.
Okay, because I saw photos of you like when I was like doing my research and whatnot. I was like, am I just really short or is she really tall?
Really tall. Yeah, really, really tall. So I like quite literally stick out in a crowd all the time. And like when I'm on stage, I'm giving 110%. And imagine that from someone who's my size. Like it's energetic and loud and bold. So yeah, I just am really conscious of the space that I take up. And like I made a promise to myself that if it wasn't gonna be like true to who I was, then I would just maybe not release music for a year and a half. And like that was Mythologies was like, my sound is changing. I'm gonna make this album that's like sad and depressing and very different from like my normal like ciphery upbeat shit, but like that's what I have to offer in this time and place, you know?
But there is something you touched on about your team being like, oh, but now it's something completely different. Like just personal anecdote, I'm a huge fan of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. Every single one of their albums is completely different from the previous one. When like I know like for instance like when It's Blitz came out, that was like a hard like electronic album, and then you look at their previous stuff, it's just like grimy New York grunge. So I think it shows a great range for you as an artist that you can do both.
Right, and I'm so appreciative of you saying that, and I think I understand my team's challenge too, because when you're like looking at playlisting or like like artists like Lex Leosis, like artists like Lex Leosis Mythologies or like Lex Leosis Terracotta are two maybe different playlists, so I get that there's like a struggle on the business side too, but I think everyone on my team has been so like supportive of like me just growing as a person, which was really important. Like everyone that works around me is like a friend, or like if they didn't start off as a friend, we've built that friendship together. And I want my whole team to be like that always, and if I have to forego certain levels of success to make that happen, like I would just rather everyone around me like be contributing in a way that makes them feel good.
Yeah, no, it's again super, super impressive hearing you talk about that. I've learned so much, doing this about like all the work that the teams do behind the scenes, and it's it's something that the average layperson just doesn't know about or doesn't realize how much work goes in. So it's always interesting hearing like the artists talk about their team in such a positive way, and like recognizing all that behind the scenes work.
Yeah, I was hearing India Ari yesterday. She put up a clip about making music accessible, and it being like very sexist and racist systematically, and that like one of the huge things was that like we share each other's music, and that like it's authentic, and like we put each other on, and that like music historically has been this thing you just turn on the radio and it flows out, and like people don't give it a second thought, but like you said, like there's so much work that goes behind every single thing. Like you write the song and then someone has to produce it, engineer it, mix it, master it, and there's like for each step that's a different person, like touching your work, and then someone has to design the music video and the artwork, and then there's a whole team that has to promote it and make it accessible to people. So it's like like 50 plus people probably touched an EP that I just had, between all the videos and the like makeups and the stylists and everyone. Like there's a ton, it's a community of people it took to put this project out. So I'm like also very grateful for them always, and want to make sure that it's like it's our project, not my project, because like I just wrote the music, and I feel very special that it gets to be about me, which is crazy sometimes, but like all these people are contributing their talents and hard work to it. So it's like it has to come from a place of gratitude and from a place of everyone is happy with the end product.
No, that's super awesome. I kind of want to touch a little bit on that though. Just you mentioned, there is like there's a lot of like ingrained racism, sexism that occurs like within the music industry. Being that you are still kind of like a younger, fresher performer, do you struggle with that a lot where people maybe just like aren't taking you seriously, or they'll, come over at like 9 o'clock for like a late night writing session?
Yeah, definitely. There's some creeps in the industry for sure. I've had a big struggle with like constantly through my career, and I think a lot of women feel this way. You have to pick like success over being comfortable sometimes, like being comfortable over success. I mean, like knowing that if you're going to turn this person down, like that means, and Jesse Reyes wrote a really good song called Gatekeeper about it. Yeah, it's a great, it's a great song. And I think like that song hits so for so many people in general, like not just women. And yeah, it's been a struggle to kind of navigate, but I think linking up with the sorority, but also linking up with other creatives in the industry and like supporting each other and helping each other and like putting each other on, like where my privilege shines through as a white person, I can put on 5 different people with my platform, and like maybe a man can do that for me, or someone who's straight can do that for me. And that's kind of how I've always approached it, is like the power is within the community and like helping each other and putting each other on. And the higher you get up, the more they want to isolate that community to just you, or like just look out for yourself and get your money and like do your thing. But I think having a strong team around you and like day ones, we call them, to like make sure, that you're like humbled and like that people check you and I check other people when like it's like we're doing too much here. But yeah, that, especially being a woman, like there's just a set of rules that you always like, you don't go to the studio alone if you've never met the person and you're just like linking up with them. Like you bring someone, and like you bring another girl, you bring your man, like someone comes with you, so yeah, it's like a weird set of rules we've developed, but it works. It helps protect each other.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you brought up gatekeeping by Reyes there, because I'm gay myself, but I am also incredibly white. So it's always been weird. That's like I've gotten all these privileges, yes, on one side, but then I have all these negatives per se
Right.
on the other side. And I always like when I'm interviewing folks who are either non-binary or like a member of the queer community. It's so interesting to hear like how you have to downplay one part of it so you're not a target, but you also want to be visible enough that you can show people that it's okay, and to like get notoriety within the community and like raise other
Yeah.
people's voices. It's an interesting kind of balancing act
Slippery
constantly.
slope. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is. And then it's like, I want to like assert my place in the industry as a woman, but I don't want to take up too much space in hip hop as a white person, and just like navigating those lines. And like, that's why I'm saying like, it takes a lot of self like work and like therapy and shit between each album, because like as you get higher up in your career and as you become a different person, like it's important that your music reflects that. I think we all know an artist that like we've listened to that just gets old because they're talking about the same shit. You're like, you love them at the beginning and then there's just no growth and you're just like, okay, well, I'm done with it.
I can think of more than just one artist.
Right. And sometimes it's really sad because you're like, like I just want more from you. But yeah, that I've kind of come to peace with too, because like I'm grateful that they share their lives with us. And usually I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just play these first 2 albums over and over again and just call it quits there.
Well, it's just because you came out fairly like later in life, or at least like you came out like publicly, I should say. It's a process. You can't put one date on it. But
Right.
what was that like for you and coming out to your family and whatnot, if you're comfortable talking about that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was weird because I felt as like being bisexual that I didn't need to come out. Like there was that for a long time, because I was just like, okay, this is just like a part of me, but you can still like hide behind the like like the straight part. But then I specifically had a partner who I wrote Gemini about on mythologies, that like it was unfair to them. Like, you're a huge part of my life, and like I don't want to feel like I'm hiding anyone or like hiding or like hiding any part of me from anyone that I love. And I think at that moment, I was also becoming more confident in myself and in my body and in my career, where I was just like, if people don't want to fuck with me because of this, then that's their loss. And I like that's just going to show who I don't want in my life. Right. You get to that certain level of like confidence as like an adult where you're just like, okay, well, whatever. But yeah. And I also hadn't really explored it until later in life either, you know? Like I just thought it was just like, I was just like, oh, like I like women in the background. And I was like, no, I love women, you know, like, and then I was like really important. Most of my family knows before I released Mythologies, I came out to my mom and my brother, which were the big important ones. And my mom had a lot of questions. Yeah, as straight mothers do. And my brother was typical little brother, like, that's cool. I love you and I support you, you know, which was nice. He didn't really say anything. And so yeah, that's been a process too. But now I'm like, it was so good to just be out. Like it was so good. It just felt so like good.
Yeah, it's such a weight off your chest because now you're not living this like double life anymore. So what's the age difference between you and your brother?
Just 2 years.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
Yeah. It was just 2 years. And there are other queer people in my family too. So like it wasn't like it was like this big, like I'm the only one. But like, yeah, people just had no idea. I think they were like shocked or whatever. So I had to deal with all that. But my thing was like, I'll answer any of your questions because I'm just like really happy that like you want to ask them and be a part of this and be a part of my life and like accept me for who I am. If you have questions, like even if they're like a little ignorant, I'll go into it with you, you know? You make like amenities for your family.
The joy when you first start coming out and just everyone has like the weirdest questions and you know they mean it with like the best of hearts and the best of intentions, but at the same time in the back of your head you're always just like, what?
You're like,
that was the question you chose to go with? Like,
yeah, you're like, you're leading with that? Yeah. So she, like, my mom's main question was, I feel like I'm like kind of putting her on blast here, but my mom's main question, I think it's important to talk about, was that like, if I was bisexual, did I like one side of the spectrum more than others? And I was just like, no, like that's not how it worked. Like I was so confused by that. I was like, no, it's not like a 60-40 thing, you know? Like but yeah, so like there was a lot of deep questions and like some deep conversations, but it just feels good to like be authentically me. And I also didn't want my family to hear my music and then be like, what?
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing, like hear it on CBC being like, sorry.
So I guess then you and your brother were pretty close growing up. Do you think that you influenced his music, or do you think that like he influenced your taste in music? Or is it just kind of like a musical household growing up?
Oh yeah, no one in my family is a musical person. So I was like the weird odd one out. I like don't even know where it came from. I had an older cousin who listened to hip hop, and he put me on a Tribe Called Quest like super early when I was 6. And then we had like LimeWire, so we like we dug in from there, and it was just like a rabbit hole for me. I was obsessed. But my grandpa was super into jazz, and he actually had the foresight, I guess, because when I was a kid, I liked music so much and it was so obvious to everyone except for me, but he left me all of his jazz records and I didn't get them until this year. So that was beautiful because I was like crate digging through my grandpa's jazz collection, which has inspired some of this new music as well to be a bit more like, you'll hear the saxophone in it, you'll hear like it's kind of this combination between like house, jazz, and hip hop. And like a little bit of funk too. My mom loved funk and she used to blast it in our house. So where was a music household in that? Like everyone enjoyed music, but no one did music.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I'm always curious because it's always one or the other. It's either there was like it was a no music and then just the one artist popped out of nowhere, or it's like always, oh yeah, like all 7 of my siblings.
Yeah, we had a choir when we were growing up. You're like, oh damn.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty funny. All right, well, I want to just pivot away. Weirdly enough, let's pivot away from your music for a bit, even though That's what it is. Kind of wanted to talk about the fact that you have a massive catering company as well.
Oh yeah, knives and
It's
vibes.
at Knives and Vibes.
Yeah, knives and
Yeah.
vibes. Yeah. So yeah, I paid all my bills growing up through working in kitchens. My dad actually owns a restaurant, so we get like shipped off there in the summer and work at the restaurant. And still to this day, I'll go visit and he'll be like, the gardens need to be done or whatever. I always laugh at my dad because I'm like, no matter how, like CBC could be playing my stuff on the radio on the way to my dad's, and I'm like scrubbing the floors at the restaurant still to this very day. But yeah, he taught me how to cook. My yaya, his mother, taught me how to cook when I was super young, and I've just always been really into like, it feels like it's an art too as well. It's very creative cooking. So when I was, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, I worked in a vegan kitchen before the sorority started to go on tour, and I became plant-based fully. And then I just started discovering that there was this whole side of cooking that like didn't involve meat or dairy that I had no idea about. And I just spiraled into that. And then I wanted to get around the fact that a lot of people think eating plant-based is expensive, because like I was like, a starving artist trying to like eat plant-based, and I'm not gonna buy a $7 salad or so I want to eat a lot. I'm 6'2", like I'm ready to eat every time. So I started cooking like things that I enjoyed, but just making them plant-based, and that's where Knives and Vibes came in. I mainly do like small catering things for people who have never been plant-based and want to be, so like meal prep kind of stuff. And then I also run a page, knives.vibes, on Instagram that just kind of takes you through the process of cooking each individual meal and just seeing what goes into it and like how creative you can get without using meat and dairy. And I'm not like super like vegan, like against people who it's not about that at all. It's just that like for me, when I went plant-based, I just saw like a big difference in my body and my energy, and like I was just like, this feels good for me. Some people it doesn't work for them. For me it just worked well, and so I just wanted to like, plant-based has kind of like a gatekeeping thing based on like what you hear about it, where I'm just like, nah, this shit's just as easy. Like you can just as easily do a one pot meal, like throw stuff in and it'd be really good and flavorful and like make you super full for a little bit of money.
Yeah, no, like I was vegetarian for about 10 years, like, and I was vegan for about a year and a half of that. Even tried raw vegan, would not suggest that.
I did that as well. I don't know how people keep that up long term. I'll do a week here and there to like detox, but no.
Yeah, and this was when I did raw vegan, that would have been, I'm going to say like 2008, 2009, something like that. So like vegetarian options were getting a garden salad with the quarter of the tomato that somehow was the same price as my friend's burgers. Yeah.
Facts.
But yeah, you're 100% correct. There is this very like elitist gatekeepy attitude towards it when it's like, no, just look at a lot of like Southeast Asian dishes, a lot of like Middle Eastern dishes. They're all veggie. They're all veggie based. And
Jamaican, same thing too. It's like there's a big side of Jamaican cooking that has a lot of meat, but there's a huge side that doesn't at all.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much every culture has that. There's a couple, like the Greeks, we eat cheese with everything, dairy with everything.
Yeah, there's meat in pretty much every day.
yeah, meat or dairy. Like, but I still, even when I go to someone's house now and like they've cooked me a meal, I'll eat it regardless. Like that's how I feel. And like if I'm being vegan in the city is super easy because like nothing is like fresh here. Everything's imported, right? But like when you go to remote communities or like countryside places, like that's what you have to eat. And I'm like, that was more my plant-based journey, was like I wanted to eat what was like healthy and accessible, and like meat that is 6 days removed from the grocery store doesn't feel good for me. But if I'm like in Halifax, I'm eating fish, I like for sure I'm having fish every meal because it's just there. So just what's accessible and around you. And I got really into like planting and gardening my own food as well, and just trying to do everything outside of the system as possible.
No, it's true. It's because you do have to factor in like, the environmental impact of me eating this piece of meat versus, the truck that took it for a week across the province. Like
right. And it's just, and like some things that you can trust like the process is detailed, and they have all the labeling and ingredients and stuff, and they'll tell you where it was farmed and how it was farmed, is like really expensive. So then as a struggling artist, you're like, no, I'm not going to pay $10 for like 2 pieces of chicken. That's crazy, you know? So I just started to save money and like also like not really miss it. I'm like, man, there's coconut milk like for dairy. Like we make like some really great plant-based ice creams, and just like anything that I wanted originally, I just could find a cool substitute that worked for me at least. So I was like, this feels good.
And especially over the last, I'd say like, I'm going to say like 3-4 years, 5 years, whatever, the prices have dropped on everything. And there's such a wider selection of items. It used to be like, oh, this is your one cereal that you could get. And this was like the one ice cream brand that you could get.
I applaud you for being a vegetarian for 10 years, because people who were vegetarian, like I even wasn't, back when this wasn't popular, had like, you'd travel and you'd be like you said, I'm getting the side salad, you know,
Yeah,
like that's it.
There was a lot of very sad meals back then, because also too, like I was younger, I was in like my early 20s, so like I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, oh, lentils,
right,
that's a thing.
right, and you don't even know how to put them together, so you like eat everything separately. You're like, okay, I'm gonna cook, like I guess I could cook a pot of rice and a pot of lentils, and I'll just like put some dressing on it and like hope it smacks. But now you're like, oh no, like I can build flavors, like anything with onions and garlic as a starting thing, and then spices.
Yeah,
it's a wrap. It's delicious.
Yeah, I've even gone so far as to like do like the aquafaba to make like meringues and stuff like that.
Ooh,
Oh yeah,
go.
like once you hit like you know what it's like, once you hit like 25, 27 kind of thing, you're like, oh, I'm not scared of the kitchen anymore.
Oh yeah,
like, let's just go for it. Like,
yeah, I made I just tried spherification the other day. So I made like the tomato egg, and that blew my mind. I was like, I had this like shakshuka, so like bread and like tomato sauce with the like tomato like yolky thing. Oh, so good.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet with savory foods, but I've gotten really good at using like doing molecular gastronomy for cocktails and stuff. So yeah, I do. Well, this is like such an off tangent, but yeah, I do it with yeah, mojitos and Moscow mules are the easiest, because you can just have your base, and then you can have like the beads for like the other flavors. So yeah.
Well, when someone makes you a drink with beads in it that they made them yourself, they're like, it's so impressive. You're like, I am the drink master. Like,
yeah, it's just like me and like 2 friends at their house. I'm like, I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, exactly. Facts. It's always just the 2 friends that are like, wow, this turned out crazy.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So like it really seems that you have a whole, like your whole family's behind you have a whole community behind you. And I'm still getting over the fact that you were both a jazz and a hip hop household.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, it's like I also put, for me, like living is about community, and like I've just been, because my mom, I grew up like me and my brother and just my mom, and my mom was working to provide for us, and like so we relied heavily on a community around us. Like I had a lot of friends who like parents would have me over for dinner when my mom was working, and like that's how we grew up. Like it was my cousins, like my aunts all took care of us, and like it was a community always. And then when I found hip hop, and I was like, through all the elements too, not just being a rapper, like the dancers and the writers and DJs, like that was such a community in itself. And the Toronto community is like small but so vibrant. And as soon as I started connecting with people all over the world, and then there's this whole scene in my city too, I was like, I'll do anything for my community. And like once you put that energy out, you receive it back. And like then it's just like this reciprocal, like we all like love on each other and support each other. And to me, that's always been like a big part of, if that's not there, then I don't really want to do this anymore, you know, because the other shit is really hard. The like creating and making music is fun, and then like the touring and the like promoting and the business part is like not as fun for me. If I'm up front, I don't think it's really fun for anyone. And like you find fun parts to it, but you find those fun parts like through community, you know, like when you're like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm traveling with like my DJ and my manager, but they're my best friends, and now we're going on a road trip to a show. Like that's so much more fun than like, let me just get this show over with, you know?
Yeah. That's funny. You don't consider yourself a dancer?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, sort of. I used to dance pretty hard. I danced through college as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that part of my life is over now.
Yeah, no, I just love chirping people who like actually have dance backgrounds because I am as coordinated as constantly having bruises all over my body and not knowing where they came from. And I know they're from like somehow my sofa or a door frame. So whenever anybody can be coordinated enough to dance, I just always like to chirp you guys a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, please do. We deserve it. We get too cocky. The choreo on stage too is like, but the actual dancers who like really do this are so dedicated to their craft as well. And like, I have this thing where I get hyped up to dance videos, like choreography videos before shows. It's like a real thing that like everyone knows about me. Like Lex just watching choreography on her phone again because there's so much energy in that movement. And to me, that's always been so beautiful. All the elements of hip hop to me, I'm obsessed with all of them. Fashion, street knowledge, yeah, DJing, graffiti, all of it.
I mean, living in Toronto, you got tons of graffiti options.
Everywhere.
The street art is out of control there. I
Yeah,
love
we have
it.
some of the best artists and the best writers in the world. I will say that like so confidently too.
All right. So with Won't Wait being kind of the flagship song for Terracotta, do we have a release date?
Yeah, I can actually tell you now. So the next single is June 10th. It's called Wanted. Actually, it's going to premiere on Strombo tonight. If people want to get a sneak peek, they can go to Strombo's site even afterwards. And then July 9th is Terracotta.
Nice.
And there'll be videos for everything moving forward. Won't Wait was the only one that we didn't have a video for because pandemic.
You still did a visualizer video,
Yeah,
didn't
we did a
you? Yeah.
visualizer, which was really, really cool. Actually, one of my friends, he put those like loops together. Took him forever, and he's so brilliant. And yeah, we were really happy with. I was really happy to have some kind of visual aspect to it. But yeah, the next ones have like videos.
Nice.
And I'm excited about that too, because again, that's a whole crew of people that put their talent and work into something that gets to like live as this art piece now. Feels cool.
So you've already filmed it then, or you're going to be filming it?
Yeah, no, we already filmed it. Yeah, it comes out June 10th. Yeah, we filmed it a few weeks ago. It's all the next single is like very funk based,
Nice.
like funk hip hop combo, and the video kind of has this like 70s, 80s Thelma and Louise on the run feel. So I got to drive my dream car, the Thunderbird, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited for it.
Oh, it sounds amazing. So super stoked. So don't want to take up too much time on your Sunday. Hopefully you guys are having similar weather that we're having, and it's
Beautiful.
yeah.
It's
So
absolutely beautiful.
yeah, because like we were really cold for the last like week or so, and I was like,
It
but
was
it's the end
snowing.
of May.
It was snowing here 2 days ago. It was like, what?
I'm sorry, it snowed?
Yeah, like it didn't snow hard, but they were like snowflakes coming out of the sky, and we were
Because
all like,
I have a buddy in Orangeville, and I know it snowed there, but I was like, oh, you're outside of the
yeah,
city. Like
you're
I
like,
can
yeah,
understand,
yeah.
I can understand that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
No,
Like,
it was here too. It was here too.
oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
it was so cold.
All right, so last couple of questions before we end this lovely Sunday afternoon. Now that you've done 1.5 billion of these interviews and you've been doing them for years now,
Yeah.
what is one question that never comes up that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, that's such a great question that I don't have an answer for right off the bat. Let me think. You touched on cooking, which I really love to talk about. So thank you for doing that. I think more just like hip hop history and culture as well, that I like to like really nerd out about that stuff. So going deeper into that, but this was a great interview. Thank you so much.
So what you're saying is that you'd love to come back a second time and we can just exclusively talk about like hip hop culture and history?
Yes, let's do it. I'm always down.
I'd be super down to do that. And then we kind of touched on already, but because of COVID messing everything up for the last year and a half or so, and a lot of smaller business, especially a lot of like mom and pop, BIPOC owned businesses, they kind of suffered the most during all this. What are a couple places that you just want to give like a shout out to, whether it's like restaurants, stores, whatever? Yeah.
I have a whole list. I'm so excited. Aunt Lucy's Burgers. They like make the best burgers. They serve them with fries or plantain, and delicious. Alternative Thinking on Bathurst and Bloor. It's a metaphysical shop, all stop shop for everything metaphysical. And they're actually like the only building left in when Honest Ed's got taken down. They like refused to move. So they're like, it's like this whole big new condo site, and they're just one shop at the end of it being like, nah, we're not going anywhere. So definitely support alternative thinking. You can go to alter8.com and you can shop there online too, and they'll send you stuff.
Nice. To be honest, I think I may have walked past it before. I just was like, oh, that seems out of place. But
yeah, exactly. It's like, it's on this, like, it looks like this huge grave site now. Like it's like this massive hole, and it just says all boarded up, but their shop is still there, and like they're protesting the gentrification of that area. And like, I love that so much.
Yeah, we're lucky we haven't quite hit that wave yet with the gentrification, but and I give it 5 years, you know what I mean? And it will be like that over here in Ottawa as well. But yeah, Toronto is like real bad for that, where it's just entire blocks of just nothingness.
Yeah, and just like condos with nobody in them.
No one's in them.
Yeah. What? Yeah, so that, I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. Your questions are so insightful and amazing. Appreciate it.
I love doing research. I'm a giant nerd, and it's even more fun when, like, you know, I like the musician. I like your music. You were interesting to like read up on, so I'm really glad that you had just as much fun. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll come back anytime. I'm so down.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your sunny Sunday afternoon. And yeah, I'm super down to like chit chat again whenever, you know, maybe like a month or two once you're done doing all the promotions and whatnot.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Sunday.
You as well. Peace out.